Outrage has erupted after a video surfaced showing adults allegedly encouraging young children to consume alcohol on Christmas Day. The widely circulated footage shows several children drinking what appears to be beer in full view of adults. The Eastern Cape Department of Social Development has since mobilized social workers to conduct a full investigation into the incident. To unpack the key pieces of legislation governing children's rights and protection in South Africa, I'm now joined by Dr. Omar, Shaheda Omar, the director of the Teddy Bear Clinic. Dr. Omar, thank you very much for your time. We heard the social development talking about the Children's Act kicking in. And when we look at that particular video, because it's all we have at this moment, would we say that these are children that are in need of care and protection as envisaged in Section 150 of that Act?
Well, certainly children have rights to be protected, the safety, rights to safety and protection at all times. And the Children's Act speaks specifically to promoting the best interests of the child. And what we are seeing here is that these are young children. They are under the age of 18. They are not adults. They are minors and require protection. So looking at their rights and the responsibilities of people around them, the adults, the significant adults or others, it is absolute responsibility to ensure the safety and protection of children. And of course, why alcohol is especially dangerous for children. Children's bodies and brains are still developing. Alcohol affects them much more strongly than adults. And I think we need to just understand that their livers cannot process alcohol efficiently. Their brains are still in the process of forming, especially areas linked to learning, judgment, and self-control, the impulsivity and concentration. A small amount of alcohol can have huge implications and effects on children. But also looking at, you're speaking to legislation, we have to, this actually constitutes abuse. It's not only physical abuse, psychological abuse or emotional abuse. It's the whole spectrum of abuse because there are short-term effects on young children. And even small amounts, a tiny amount of alcohol can cause nausea, vomiting, dizziness, poor coordination, and confusion for a child, sleepiness or loss of consciousness, low blood sugar, which can lead to seizures, alcohol poisoning, which can be life-threatening. So in very young children, and alcohol can be actually considered a medical emergency. And if we go into the long-term effects, it's even more alarming. The damage of the brain, causing learning, memory, and attention problems, the impairment thereof, the increased risk of behavioral and emotional issues, the likelihood of predisposing them to use addictive substances in the future, but also affecting growth and overall health. And I think, one can continue, but the legal and safety considerations is that giving alcohol to young children is illegal. It is widely considered child endangerment. Health professionals strongly advise zero alcohol for children. And I think this is something that we have to realize. It is unlawful. It's a contravention of the law. It's a criminal offense which needs to be attended to immediately. And the persons responsible for committing this offense should be prosecuted.
The Act gives the social workers about 90 days to investigate whether or not these children are in need of care and protection. Isn't that a long time given the effects of alcohol that you speak about right now?
So you are absolutely correct. It's a long and lengthy process, but an immediate risk assessment needs to be done, conducted immediately by a statutory social worker, a designated child protection organization who have the powers to remove a child if they see that the child is at risk. And in this situation, the children have been given alcohol by significant others, by adults who should know their rights and responsibilities. And of course, this situation requires immediate, urgent attention, even if it means an immediate removal to ensure that the child is put in the safekeeping of the next of kin or somebody until an investigation is conducted, because there is no guarantee that the child will not be subjected to further alcohol abuse or misuse, or other dangers or risky behaviors that the child may be subjected to.
We know that the High Court is the highest guardian when it comes to children in South Africa. Now, in this process of investigation, would the competence of the parents themselves be investigated?
Indeed, the competence of the parents, if the parents are the ones that have been maybe not directly providing alcohol, but they've been complicit or complacent about it, they are complicit and equally guilty, so colluded, so therefore they would have to bear the consequences of their actions.
Let's talk now about these children who may not necessarily know what they're doing. Immediately, right now, you speak of immediate measures that are needed. What kind of support would they need? Would they need psychosocial support to get a better understanding of what they're going through, and even to get an understanding of the environments that they come from?
Well, I think you already alluded to the fact of the psychosocial support, but the psychosocial support is not only for the children. Yes, they are the immediate victims of this scourge of violence, but psychosocial support for their caregivers, for the primary caregivers or parents, is also important. The idea is not to, disintegrate the family. The idea is to provide support, but should the supportive mechanisms not be in place, should there be evidence of irresponsible, purposeful, and situational neglect, that needs to be considered. And therefore, it's, as I said, it's about preservation, psychosocial support for all role players, for all the individuals and families that are involved, but to ensure that the victim, the child who is the victim, or the victims get immediate support, containment. And as I said, in young children, it could be a medical emergency, so they would also require immediate medical attention.
We saw, for example, in the Inyobeni Tavern, criminal charges were placed there. Do you think those are enough to serve as a deterrent for parents who may be participating in this illegal conduct?
Not necessarily. It could, one has to look at, as I said, psychosocial support, but also taking into consideration that actions have consequences. So parents would have to bear the implications of their conduct. And of course, there would be certain consequences that will be put into place. And until such time where, the social workers and the mental health professionals find that the parents are more contained, informed, conscientized, and have shown regret, remorse, and are willing to redeem themselves under those circumstances. Of course, the families being reunited. So reconstructive services need to be provided on both ends before one actually looks at bringing the families together.
What responsibility does the community play here? Because I was speaking earlier to my guest and I asked her whether or not the principles of it takes a community to raise a child apply here. So when these investigations take place, to what extent do they go? Do they also look at the role that perhaps the environment itself, outside of the home, the community itself plays in this regard?
So Linda, you've raised such an important point here. It is important that everybody realizes, every member of community, that the protection of a child is not only a parent or a caregiver's responsibility. It is the responsibility of each and every one. Child protection is not my business. It's not your business. It's our business. However, I think if we look at the Children's Act, as I mentioned earlier on, this constitutes child abuse. So if there's any doubt, any suspicion, any inkling that a child, this constitutes abuse. So seeing this kind of conduct actually is not a moral obligation to report, but it's a legal obligation to report it to the authorities. And failure to report it would constitute a criminal offense, because being a bystander and doing nothing about it, witnessing this, also, there are consequences in place. So everybody needs to realize that it's not just a civic duty, it's a legal duty to report to the Family Violence, Child Protection and Sexual Offences Unit, the Department of Social Development, or the nearest or local child welfare society.
All right, that was Dr. Shaheda Omar. Thank you very much for your time.